How fast should you speak English? How fast should you speak English? What pace should you use? And also, what's the best way to teach English? Should you learn the phonetic symbols to help your pronunciation? We'll answer these questions and more in this episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, and if you are a new listener, you're very welcome. If you're back for another episode, we hope you've had a good week. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching English between us, we're going to help you grow your grammar, perfect your pronunciation, and vocalize your vocabulary, improving your English and taking it to the next level. How are you, Reza?
I'm fine. I'm doing well. What about you, Craig?
I'm feeling good. I'm happy to be podcasting again with you this week. First, we have a message from Eric from La Gomera.
Hi, Rez and Craig. It's Eric from La Gomera again. I'm sending you this message because I've been lately working a lot on pronunciation and I have some questions and suggestions for you. First of all, do you think that it would be better for me if I learn all the signs of pronunciation? I mean, these strange letters that appears when you look for the pronunciation of one word. Do you think that's really gonna help me, or you see that as unnecessary? Secondly, it would be interesting that you make a podcast about words that are very similar on pronunciation. I think it's a useful topic, and I found it a lot of these words lately. I'm gonna read you a few examples. For example, WALK and WORK, like work and work. For example, pecado and escena is sin and seeing. I mean, they are not very different, so I think it would be both interesting and very useful to make a podcast about that. So thank you for your help and bye.
Thanks for your message, Eric. That was very interesting. You ask if you should learn all the IPA. That's not a beer.
It's not India Pale Ale.
No, I thought the India Pale Ale is very nice. He's talking about IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet. Phonetics, phonemes. Should he learn them all? Well, it's up to you. It's not necessary to learn and know the IPA to have good pronunciation, but if you've got time and it interests you, yes, I say do it if you have the time and the interest, because it is useful to know the International Phonetic Alphabet if you wish to perfect your pronunciation. You said they're like letters. They're not actually. Technically, they're symbols. They look like letters, kind of, but they're not letters. Letters are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. But these are symbols like O, L, R. So they're not letters. They're symbols which represent sounds. So if you know the symbol, then you know the sound. Because the letters in English don't tell you the sound. Because English is not a phonetic language. In other words, letters don't represent a fixed phonetic symbol. In Spanish, they do. Spanish is a phonetic language. The letter represents the sound. You don't need any other symbols. So in English, it can be useful to know those symbols. But if you haven't got time, I wouldn't worry about it. But Eric, if you do have time and interest, why not try to learn them? Well, what would you say, Craig?
No, I agree with you. And I think it really helps when you learn a new word. If you can read the symbols, you can look in a dictionary and you know exactly how to say the word. For example, if you see CHAIR, you know the CH is chair. But if you see CHOIR, the phonetic alphabet will tell you it's choir. So the CH is K, not ch. Those kind of differences are really important, especially when you're learning new words. There are 44 different phonemes that you have to learn in English, so 26 letters of the alphabet, but 44 sounds. And we can help you if you're interested in learning these sounds in the Mansion Inglés Intermediate course. As you go through the course, we introduce the different phonemes, the 44 phonemes during the course, and it's a free course. So go to inglespodcast.com/336 to look at the show notes for this episode, and there's a link to the Mansion Inglés course. We also did a podcast about difficult words for Spanish speakers, and Eric gave 2 examples, walk and work and sit and seen. We'll look at those in a second. But our podcast about these difficult words can be found at inglespodcast.com/311. And those specific words, Eric, the walk, which is andar, it has the or sound in the same as in the words door and more. So or, walk. And work has the sound as in nurse or turn. So the difference between those two, the vowel sounds are different. And it's the same with sin and seen. Sin, pecado, has a very short I, sin, like pin or in. And seen is a longer vowel sound, E, like see or me. So sin and seen. And if you're having difficulty with those kinds of words as a Spanish speaker, we've recently created a course specifically about this. It's a pronunciation course, and I'll link to it in the show notes. You can find it on the Mansion Inglés store. And it particularly focuses on these vowel differences, different word stress problems, silent letters, ed endings on regular verbs, and typical problems that Spanish speakers have when they're pronouncing English. Let's have a competition. It's €12 to buy, but because some of you are AIRCaholics and you listen to this podcast every week, Aprender Inglés con Rezi Craig, AIRCaholic, let's have a competition. I'm going to ask you a question, and the first 3 people who send me an email with the answer get the course free. The question is, how many of these mispronounced words are there in the course? How many of these mispronounced words are there in the course? The answer is on the website, store.mansioningles.net. You can find it in the show notes. And my email address, you have to listen until the end of the podcast to find that.
We've got some more feedback, this time from another continent, from Brazil, and it's an email from Marlana. I'll read it for you. She writes, "Hi Reza. Hi Craig. I'm Marlana from Maranhão, Brazil. I've been studying English for a long time, and I always had a lot of difficulty." She said I always had. I would say, Marlana, I have always had. Because present perfect would be better because it's from the past up to now. It's not only in the past, it's the past up to now. So present perfect. I have always had a lot of difficulty learning languages, despite I love it. That's another little mistake we might correct. Despite plus ing, despite loving it. I would like to thank you guys for helping me. When I started listening to you, I was barely able to comprehend you. Now I can understand most of the things that you say, and knowing that you're the best teachers that I've known, my question is, what is the best approach, method, or manner to teach English in your opinion? How can I associate listening, reading, writing, speaking with grammar without being boring or heavy? How could I teach it in a simple and effective way? I'd be delighted if you replied to me, considering that my aim is to be able to teach in the future. Well, first of all, Marlana, thank you very much for your compliments.
Yes, thank you very much.
Compliments are nice things that you say about someone. And that's a good question. Any ideas, Craig?
Well, we are speaking to you on a podcast and we're trying to help you with your English through audio. Obviously, that's very different from teaching in a classroom. When Reza and I teach in a classroom, we use the communicative approach. We try to be as communicative as possible with the students. And that means a lot of personalization, making the material personalized to the students. So if you're teaching grammar, it's very important to get the students to use the grammar you're teaching as it applies to their lives. What are they experiencing? So if you're teaching them the present perfect, get examples from the students with the present perfect that are true for them, that are happening in their lives. It's much more effective if you can make it personal. And that's true with grammar, vocabulary, and other aspects of English. There are also lots of ideas and lesson plans based around the communicative approach on the internet, Marla. So just Google English exercises, communicative exercises in the classroom, and with a bit of time looking at websites, I'm sure you'll get some really good ideas. And there is also a teachers section at mansioningles.com with some information on how to teach and with some ideas for activities in the classroom.
Yeah, if you just Google TEFL, TEFL or EFL or Teaching English, there are dozens and dozens of websites with free material and ideas about teaching in the classroom. So much stuff there on the internet.
And good luck, Marlana, with your classes. We hope it goes really well for you. Next, we have a message from an old friend of mine, Sergio, from Valencia, who I did not know is now living in Ireland.
Hi, Reza. Hi, Greg. I'm Sergio. Craig is an old acquaintance of mine, as he was teaching me long ago on the British Council. Okay, let me share a short story with you. Nowadays, I'm listening to your podcast while driving back and forth, doing the school run in the morning, and listening to the latest episode and catching up with old ones, very old ones sometimes. I was driving this morning when the episode 261 popped in, and I was struggling with the traffic when Reza came along with his bad joke about an Irishman pointing a gun. And I don't know how many listeners you have from Ireland, but it happens that I'm living at Naas, Kildare County, and I catch the joke and I laugh quite loudly this morning. I never underestimate the power of a bad joke in times of stress. Yeah? Okay, funny stories aside, you are doing a fantastic job, and it's great to learn and have fun listening to you guys. Keep doing it. Thanks and bye-bye.
Well, Sergio, it's been a long time since you were in my class, but as soon as I heard your voice message, I recognized your voice and I know who you are. So thanks so much for getting back in touch with your message that really cheered me up and made me happy. Let's try and help Sergio with any small problems he might have had with his message. Reza, do you have any comments?
Yes, first of all, thanks very much, Sergio. And I'm glad to hear you're in Ireland. I hope you're having a good time there in Naas.
Where is that?
Naas, I think it's County Kildare. And you probably wouldn't guess the spelling if you'd never seen it before. It's spelled Naas, and it's pronounced Naas. So he's in Naas. I've never actually been there myself. I've been in County Kildare, but I haven't been in the town of Naas. But Kildare is a lovely county. So I hope you're having a good time there. There are a couple of little things, though, Sergio, that we might improve, or a couple of wee things, as people in Ireland often say. Your pronunciation of acquaintance. I think you said Craig you got the stress in the wrong place. Acquaintance, it's on the second syllable. Acquaintance.
And also you said he was teaching me and you used the past continuous. You can use the past continuous if there was another short action in the middle of it, or maybe to describe a scene, to set a scene as background, but you just wanted to speak about the past, one thing in the past that's gone and finished. So past simple. He taught me at the British Council. But you're obviously listening in Ireland, you're practicing every day, your English is really, really good. I love the expression, I was struggling with the traffic, UGGling. To struggle with something is to fight with something. So I had the image of you battling or struggling with lots of cars and traffic.
One little last mistake. You said that you caught my very bad joke. I understand you, but it's not the word to catch. It's not the expression to catch. We say to get a joke. When you understand a joke, you see why it's funny, you get a joke. So you should have said, I got the joke.
Do you remember the particular joke he was talking about with the gun? What was it?
I do. It's a classic, very bad joke. What do you call an Irish man pointing a gun at you? Aiming.
Because he's aiming the gun, apuntando.
Yeah. I've got an even worse one for you now, Sergio. I hadn't prepared in advance, but since I've just listened to your message, what do you call a gorilla pointing a gun at you?
Sir?
Yes. That's, as Craig has just proven, that's an ancient joke that everybody knows. Terrible joke.
So because you're in Ireland, Sergio, and our other listeners in Ireland, imagine you're in a pub having a Guinness and Paddy is standing next to you. Paddy's a very common Irish name. It's short for Patrick. So Paddy is next to you in the pub and the barman says to Paddy, "Hey, Paddy, your glass is empty. Do you fancy another one? Do you want another one?" And Paddy says, "Well, why would I need two empty glasses?"
Oh dear, oh dear.
Anyway, Sergio, thanks so much for your message. It was really good to hear from you.
Let's go back to Brazil for more feedback. We had an email from Marlana. Now we got a voice message from Lucas.
Lucas!
Hey guys, this is Lucas again from Brazil. I was wondering if you could talk about pacing in conversation, because when we are learning English, we don't know how fast or how slowly we need to talk, because each language has a different pace. Like in Portuguese, for example, to say the same phrase in English, sometimes it's faster. So to make our conversation more interesting, it's really important to know how speed we need to use. So if you could talk about this, it will be really, really interesting for me. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to hear from you, Lucas. We haven't heard from you for a while, so please send us a voice message. We know you're still studying, so we'd like to hear from you and see how you're doing. So what do you think about pace, Reza? What is pace? It's not the same as stress, is it?
No, a good question, Lucas. I'm glad you've brought up this question. It's something which is quite often ignored and is very important. It isn't stress. Pace, I would say, to keep it simple, is the rate, I guess rate, you could say speed. It's the rate at which you deliver your words. You could deliver your words with exactly the same stress, but at a different pace. So that they're not the same thing. Not the same thing at all.
So you said the rate is similar to the speed, and speed is a noun, but you said, Lucas, how speed. So you really need an adjective there. So you could say how fast you speak or how quickly you speak. But speed is the noun. So the speed of your speech is how quickly you speak.
Just to give you an idea of pace, the standard average pace, speed, for television and that type of thing, media, television, radio, is about 150 words per minute. That's in English. 150 words per minute. That would be the pace or the speed.
Although in other countries, for example in India, where English is widely spoken, people tend to speak English a lot quicker, a much higher word rate per minute. And in India, they speak on average between 180 and 200 words per minute. So it does vary from country to country.
And I would say, Craig, just from my own experience, I haven't checked any statistics and from any sources, but I would say, generally speaking, the pace of Spanish would be more words per minute than English, I reckon.
Yeah, I don't have the facts about that, but I would agree with you. Yeah, definitely.
So it's not only a question of who's speaking the language, like are they native or are they foreigner, but some languages tend to be spoken more quickly than others. Spanish is, compared to English, quite a quickly delivered language. The pace of Spanish, certainly in Spain, I'm not such an expert in South America, but in Spain, Spanish people get quite a lot of words per minute out.
And of course, it also depends on an individual basis how quickly you speak. I've heard native Spanish speakers speak very quickly, and some native Spanish speakers speak really slowly. So there's personality as well. And that goes back to education, your family, how they tend to speak, and how you learn to speak growing up. Some people are just naturally fast speakers with a native language, and some people are slower. But what about non-native speakers, Reza?
Well, if you're a non-native speaker of a language, it's not your first language, you'll quite possibly be much slower than native speakers because it's harder for you, because you've got to think more before you speak. But don't worry too much about that, Lucas, and all our listeners. It's not a huge problem. The goal, the aim is to be understood. And if you speak a little bit slower than most native speakers, well, that's no big deal. It's not a big issue. A common mistake among many non-native English speakers is in fact to try to speak too quickly because they try to match the speed of their own native language. In other words, if Spanish is your native language and you're learning English, you think, oh, my English is really slow. I'm going to try and speak as quickly as in Spanish. Well, don't do that. Don't do that. The important thing is to be correct, to be accurate, to pronounce well. That's more important than the actual pace. So if your pronunciation isn't good, if it isn't perfect, or if you have a strong foreign accent of a non-native speaker, or simply if you make a lot of mistakes, speaking too fast will make it even harder for the native speaker to understand you.
And as you improve, as your level gets better and your English becomes more fluent, then you should be able to control and vary the pace that you're speaking at. And this will make you a more effective speaker. In other words, don't always speak very quickly or very slowly or just a normal moderate pace. The key, the important thing is variation. As you get more advanced in English, you should be varying the pace of your speech. So usually on a day-to-day conversation, the best thing is to have a moderate pace or a normal pace. That's really suitable. However, if you're telling a story and you're becoming excited, perhaps, then it's typical to use a slightly quicker pace. But when you're saying something very important, and we sometimes do this on this podcast, we tend to speak slower and we pause for more effect with important phrases or things you want to emphasize.
Think about it. I imagine that every language in the world probably does that. I would be surprised if that weren't the case. I know in Spanish, I know in Portuguese, French, German, and just about any language I can think of. Definitely, when you're saying something important, you slow down, you say it slowly. That's for sure. So it's common sense that in English, it's the same.
And if you want to see examples of this, just listen to some politicians, the way politicians speak in your native language and in English as well. And go to listen to some TED Talks when people are giving presentations. They really vary and change their pace for effect. And you can notice that with professional speakers.
Tell you what, I'll give you an example of somebody introducing a conversation, and they're only going to say about 4 or 5 sentences, but you'll notice quite a wide variety of pace in the way I say this. I'll say first what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off at a moderate pace, then slightly faster, then even faster. Then after a pause, I'll be moderate, then I'll be slightly slower, then even slower. 2 more pauses, and then slightly slower again. If you look at the show notes, you'll see this written.
To go to the show notes, you need to go to inglespodcast.com, and this is episode 336. So inglespodcast.com/336.
Okay, so here I go. Bear in mind why my pace is varying. Am I excited? Is it something important? Is it something not really important? Here we go. Do you remember that man over there? The one we were talking about yesterday during the morning coffee break? Well, you'll never guess who he's married to. You won't believe it. Crazy Mary Mitchell. Yes. The boss's secretary.
Did you see there how Reza varied the pace of his speech in normal conversation for effect? He became slower when the information was more shocking, more impactful.
And did you notice how it got quicker in the bits? The one we were talking about yesterday during the morning coffee break, because that's not important. The important thing is, do you know who this is? The fact that we were talking about her yesterday, those details are not important. I want to get over them quickly. So I said them quickly.
Also, be aware that when you increase the pace of your speech, when you speak more quickly, that can sometimes indicate or imply annoyance, when you feel annoyed, or impatience, when you're very impatient, or you're very nervous, so it could mean nervousness. Whereas, on the other hand, when you speak more slowly, that could mean importance or confidence. You can project confidence when you speak more slowly. Shall we give an example, Reza?
Yeah, let's have a little mini dialogue for you to look at the different paces.
Reza, can I borrow another pencil, please?
No, you bloody well can't. You've already lost 3.
Oh, sorry. It's true. I'm really, really sorry, but I just can't remember where I left them. I promise I'll be extra careful in future, and I'm going to get you some new ones.
No, you don't need to. Look, just don't lose any more. Take this one.
So did you notice there how we both used pace and speed to give more meaning to the words? And also notice Reza's pause after look. He said, look, just don't lose any more. There was a small, slight pause there, which is also very effective.
So did you notice how by pausing and using the different pace, it gave more meaning to our words? You could tell that I was annoyed when I said to Craig, no, you bloody well can't. I'm clearly annoyed because I've lent him many pencils already and he's lost another one. I'm annoyed. So that comes out really quickly. It shows my frustration, my impatience. I'm annoyed. I don't want to give him another pencil. I couldn't quite control my emotions, so it came out quick.
And remember to use pauses just before you give some important information. For example, do you want to know the best way to improve your English? Listen to Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig. So I pause there before giving you the answer to give your brain time to think before I delivered the information.
And of course, pace is particularly important if you're going to give a presentation. It's not only difficult for non-native speakers, it's difficult for native speakers of a language as well. If you start too quickly when you're giving a presentation, you're going to make yourself feel more nervous because you've started at a fast pace and you feel that you have to continue at this pace, but you were already nervous and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I haven't got time to think, I'm going to forget the words. So start slow when you're giving a presentation. You can always get a bit quicker later if you need to. It doesn't sound so bad, but if you start really fast, then you slow down, people will kind of notice it. So for a presentation, start at a slow, moderate pace. Don't worry if it's taking a while, that's fine. Your message is getting home to people.
And I would add to that, not only presentations, but any situation in which you feel a bit nervous. Presentations, as Reza said, job interviews, meeting people for the first time, feeling a bit nervous or anxious at a party or where you're meeting new people. If you're nervous, you're going to speak more quickly. and maybe try and swallow the words. The words disappear in your mouth because you're trying to speak English too quickly. Slow down, speak slower than normal, speak very carefully, and it will be easier for people to understand you.
If you want to find out a little bit more about using pace, we've included a couple of links in the show notes. Go to episode 336. So go to inglespodcast.com/336. So this is episode 336. Click on those links, and one of them is written text. The other one includes a useful video, and it's all about using pace to speak effectively.
Thank you very much, Lucas, for your question. And now that you have all listened to us, we would like to listen to you. Why don't you go and record a sentence or two and vary your pace? Try to speak quickly and slowly and put some pauses before something you want to emphasize. So practice your pace in a voice message. And to do that, just go to the website speakpipe.com. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. How can people send emails, Reza?
You could write to us if you prefer. You'll find Craig if you write to craig@inglespodcast.com or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
We remind you about courses available on the Mansion Ingles website. Those are for sale at store.mansioningles.net. We'd also like to thank all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast, and you can see a list of all our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/Ingles podcast. Before we go, thank you very much to our recent supporters who have joined us this month. Who are they, Reza?
They are Jessica Ramos, Jose Vázquez, Roque Montiel, and Luis Gil. Thank you to them and all our Patreon sponsors, whose name we haven't got time to mention, but thanks forever.
And you may remember, if you've been listening recently, Maria Tambien, who we were not sure if her surname was Tambien. Well, apparently not, because we received an email from Maria to clarify her name is not Maria Tambien. Would you like to read her email, Reza?
Yes, she writes, "Hello, Reza and Craig. I am also Maria."
Also Maria.
Not Maria Tambien, but in English, also Maria. This is not my real name. I have it as a result of a sort of fight I had with my phone company a time ago. Better to say maybe a while ago, hace un rato. Oh, what a curious story. I bought a new phone and I couldn't fix my email address. I tried to get a new address with my real name and I couldn't. After a long time trying to find a free name and password, I wanted to throw my phone out the window.
I know how you feel, Maria. I've been there.
I said to my phone, "Up yours."
What does that mean, up yours?
Up yours is an insult. Whenever you don't like someone or something, it's actually, usually it's for someone. It's, in this case, she said it to her phone. It's not so common to say it to a thing, but she was treating her phone as if it was a person, I guess. So I said to my phone, "Up yours."
Up your bum.
And I started again. So her name was Maria and the surname Tambien. And the password, something not very polite, she's written. We don't know exactly what it was. And it worked. And now, every time I use my phone for sending emails, I have this new identity. I think it suits me, because at last, I am only one more Maria among all the Marias in the world. I think it's funny. I wish I could send you a voice message, but I feel very embarrassed because I speak really badly. She also adds, "Reza, please say hello to Coco. My dog Becker loves to hear him barking in the background. He answers him. It's hilarious. Yours alcoholically," that's not alcoholically, that's alcoholically, "also Maria."
And thank you very much for clarifying that doubt we had about your surname. And Maria also asked about receiving the transcriptions because she is a Patreon supporter. And just log in, put your password into the Patreon website, and you should be able to see all of the transcriptions. If you continue to have problems with that, Maria, please send me another email, but I am considering sending automatic emails to all of our Patreons when we publish a new transcription. I just want to make sure that the majority of the patrons want these extra emails before I send them. So keep listening and we'll tell you in the future what we've decided to do.
By the way, Maria, Coco sends his regards. He sends a cordial bark to you and Becker. He was delighted to hear that the Becker responds to his barks in the program.
What's next week, Reza?
Next week, we've got Craig's story.
So if you'd like to find out a little more about me, because you've already heard Reza's story, join us next week. Thank you very much for listening this week. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.